Babbitt, producer of Growing Green. Growing Green was pleased to collaborate with the Garden Club of America and the Garden Club of Somerset Hills to produce a video as a prelude to their annual 4 Garden Tour. Although Garden Club members will not be able to tour these stunning gardens in person, the video will bring the tour to you, just as if you were right there with them. In part 1, we will take you to 2 amazing yet very different gardens that will motivate you to get out there and plant something.
So good morning. Welcome to 4 Gardens, and each garden is going to have its own story, which we'll be presenting as we go through the day. My name is Bruce Crawford. I am the Director of Horticulture for the Morris County Park Commission. I'm on the board of the NJLA, and I am also an honorary member of the Garden Club of America, for which I thank you. So as we look at the home behind us, obviously it is a colonial style, has a lot of horizontal lines, which the garden actually accentuates. So as we go through each garden, we're going to be looking at how does the plant material actually enhance what the house brings to the garden. So very simple front yard, you're focusing on the front door. You don't even see the forecourt behind me where you can park. So the hedges do a very nice job of hiding it. Obviously they're boxwood, so they're evergreen. You don't have deer worries, but they also really give you that year-round what's that word I'm looking for? Lines that you really need in a garden that bring it out. The house, of course, is softened. As you look at, there's 2 Chinese dogwoods on either side, and there are southern magnolias, which obviously provide evergreen interest, but also that great fragrance. So if you've ever been around a southern magnolia when it's in full bloom, wow, is that amazing. So they're not going to be in bloom at the end of April, but they'll be out in June, and I think everyone knows what they're like. So as we walk about the garden today here, we're going to be looking at how the lines really help to accentuate it, how it has that year-round stability to it, which you don't find in a lot of gardens. That evergreen element really gives you the structure. We'll be looking at a vegetable garden, a pool area, and we'll be looking at all those as we walk about the garden. So please join me as we go through the garden. So here we are in front of the secret garden, so with a red gate. So as we approach it, you've got to find out what's inside. Now that is a sturdy red gate. I like that. So look at this wonderful garden that we step into, something that you don't see, understand, appreciate from the outside. All of a sudden you come in and you're in this nice enclosed area. People don't really appreciate putting in brick walls and what that can do, and then they don't think about what you can do on the brick wall. So here we have espaliered apple trees, which again not only flower, but they provide fruit and interest throughout the season. And espaliers are something that a lot of people don't really think about anymore, but they're really easy to do. It's not a difficult trick. When you look at the garden as well, there's a lot of clipped boxwood which provides interest, provides geometry throughout the whole season. So you could just imagine this garden and with 2 or 3 inches of snow on it and how it traces on top of the boxwood. In the center we've got these lilacs, Syringa pallidum, which again is a nice dwarf lilac but offers these wonderful purple fragrant flowers which will be coming into bloom in mid-May. Just a wonderful addition to the garden. And then as you look around, you notice you have these compartments between the boxwoods which are great for adding various plants, annuals throughout the season, tulips that we have now, the plinths that are on either end, they're great for adding, working up clematis on. And then as we walk over towards this way, you notice that the walkways are actually centered on the doors. So when you're inside the building and you're looking out, all of a sudden they all become together. So it's not a garden that's separated from the house, they actually work together. Again, a traditional design, but something that you don't really see used as much as it should be. So this really makes a wonderful addition to the garden space. And from inside, you're while enjoying a cocktail at a party, you look out at this and you go, wow, what a garden to enjoy. So every garden, of course, needs a focal point. So in here we have this very attractive green urn, which presides over the garden. It was a gift to the homeowner from her children, so obviously it has a point of prominence. But as you also look around, you'll notice that there are various bulbs and a lot of peonies throughout the garden. There's both herbaceous peonies, which of course died to the ground during the winter months, but there are also tree peonies, which offer structure during the winter months and much larger, really blousy flowers that you have to love. And I always enjoy a good tree peony in the garden, and they really don't seem to be used as much as they should be. Also within the garden we have roses, and which is a classic addition. Every garden should, with a structure such as this, should have a rose or two, or in this case about a dozen, which really offer it. And there's also some hydrangeas, and of course hydrangeas are classic. There's a lot of different types, but in this case we're featuring hydrangea macrophylla, which is the large leaf hydrangea, which gives you those wonderful large blue and pink flowers that tend to come on in late June and throughout the rest of the summer. So this really is a garden not only just for the winter interest of the boxwood and the sort of the parterre that it gives you, but also for all the herbaceous material that comes and goes throughout the rest of the season. So let's take a walk on over to the stairs and see how they look, and look at the rest of the yard in the back. So as we're standing here and about to exit, the garden here is beautiful. When you come in another couple of weeks, the end of April, it'll be in full flower. You'll get to see a lot. I'm sure it's going to be a gorgeous day just like today, maybe a little bit warmer, I hope. And I hope that you'll join me on this wonderful tour. So let's go to the back and I'll show some clips of the pool and the vegetable garden. So I mentioned earlier, each garden has its own story. And initially, you know, we often don't think of it in terms of stories. We think, oh, we're just putting a plant in the ground, we're doing this, doing that. But typically, there's something that we love. There's something that really triggers our imagination, our devotion to gardening, that brings us to the next level. So this garden is phenomenal for several reasons. One, obviously, is artwork. And the trick of it all is how do you fit the art into a garden. So you just don't drop it into the bed and go, oh, there it is. You actually have to place it so that it's in a space, and it becomes the focal point for that space. It fits appropriately scale-wise, and so there's a lot that goes into it that you may not think of. And sculpture could be something like this. It could be something very small that you just suddenly come across in a walkway, and you go, oh wow, look at that. Or it could be a fountain. So when you come at the end of April, there's a sculptural fountain that you'll see at this garden as well, which is really unique and a lot of fun. Also then combined with the artwork, you have the plants. And so here we'll have tulips and the spring ephemerals, but you will also come across a lot of ground covers. And one of the things that Doug Talamy was always talking about, and I know you just saw a lecture by him, is that how do you put plants in the ground which will attract caterpillars, which in turn will feed the whole chain. And we don't think of insects, but insects are key. So one of the things that's been a focus of this garden is putting in native ground covers, which in turn will attract all those beneficials that we want. So come with me, let's do a walkabout here and see some really cool pieces of artwork and neat plants. So as we stand next to the arbor and the swimming pool, behind me obviously is a bunch of fruit trees. And so whether we're looking at how can you subsist on food that you can grow at your own property, but also how can you use that food as a structural advantage to your garden. So these trees are actually creating the space. They're creating the outdoor wall. So not only are they producing peaches and apples, and pawpaw, by the way. If you haven't grown pawpaw, you got to try pawpaw. They're creating the outdoor space, which in turn is the backdrop to the swimming pool and the outdoors. So it's just an interesting tool that I think most people haven't thought about yet. So notice here how the art is worked into the composition of the swimming pool, but then also look to the behind the arbor. So notice how those fruit trees are, before we were looking at them, they just seemed like, you know, rows of trees. But now when you look at it from this angle, you suddenly realize that it's creating the space. Your eye doesn't venture beyond the pool space, it ends at the fruit trees. So that could be done with a number of different things. You could do it as espaliers, you could do a hedge, but here it's actually an edible wall, which I think acts as a really interesting and unusual attribute to this garden. So I spoke before about the sculpture having to be in the proper size space. So when obviously you have a large sculpture, it needs to be in a large space. So this piece here obviously fits the scale and the size of the space that it's in. Also notice that as the grass goes right up to it, there's nothing to distract from the piece. So as you look at it, all of a sudden you're like, yes, I get it, and your full attention is on that piece. But a lot of people will put something in a garden and then put a lot of things around it and actually distracts from that piece of architecture. So this really works out best. Also then notice how he surrounded the space around it. So it's not just the piece of work, grass, and then nothing. It's where they're forming the wall, like we talked about before with the fruit trees. In this case, the wall is being created by Franklineas, which is a tree that was originally native to the Latamaha River in Georgia and is now extinct, hasn't been seen in the wild since the early 1800s. We have a southern magnolia, which again it retains its leaves throughout the year. We have an American holly, which also retains its leaves throughout the year. We even have a blueberry bush, which again, most people don't think about using blueberries as an ornamental, but they're a great ornamental. So, and they provide food. And then on the ground cover level, it's not just mulch or leaves. We have heuchera, which is a coral bell, and it's knit together, and we also have foam flowers, which make a great ground cover. So a lot of lessons to be learned here. Another, I think, underappreciated aspect of a lot of gardens is hedges. So as we walk through this, these hedges that we see on either side here, which is American hornbeam, these were actually planted as bare root strips, little whips that went in the ground, and there was nothing to them. And then as they grew, they started to top them, and then they start to branch out, and they form this hedge. Now, for whatever reason, a lot of gardens in America, we tend to focus on evergreen hedges. We don't think about deciduous hedges, whereas hornbeams make a wonderful deciduous hedge. And when you look at the fact that they actually hold the leaves through the wintertime, which gives them a lot of winter presence, they look great with snow on them in the winter, and I think it's just an underappreciated plant plant that happens to be native that we aren't using enough of. Another plant that's on this side over here is a large leaf magnolia. And they're very coarse in outline in the wintertime, but then they come on with these large leaves in spring and summer into early fall, and then large flowers in June. And the interesting part about that is that if you have a late frost, obviously you're not going to lose the flower. So they persist on. They're very fragrant, and they give you great bold texture. We don't think about trees for texture. We think about trees for shade. We think about trees for giving perspective of depth, perhaps for creating space, but we don't think about them for texture. So when you start thinking about the big leaf magnolias, now you're really starting to focus on texture in the garden. So, and again, it's a whole appreciation of magnolias that a lot of people don't even know about. So unfortunately time is up, so we have to leave this wonderful garden and move on to the next. I'm standing here though in front of a Sciadopodus, an umbrella pine. How often do you see an umbrella pine that is that tall? Not very often. So wonderful garden. Hope to see you here in a couple of weeks. Thank you for all your attention as we walk through the garden.
We hope you enjoyed part 1 of our 4-garden tour. Please be sure to join us next month as we visit 2 more award-winning gardens.
So Frank, a lot of our viewers want to know, how should they take care of their annuals in hanging baskets? Do you have any tips about care?
Yes, Lisa. So the most important thing I would recommend is be sure to fertilize your hanging baskets and containers often, and especially hanging baskets, because what happens is every time you water a hanging basket, because it is dehydrating quickly, hanging up wherever it is around your house, you water it and the nutrients run right through the soil and then come out the bottom.
Right.
So we would recommend either fertilizing weekly with a water-soluble food, but I personally prefer to dilute that food, probably cut it down by 1/8, and feed a little bit every time you water. So you're constantly giving a little bit of food to your hanging basket throughout the season, and that's how you're going to get it to grow big and beautiful.
Okay. And then what kind of fertilizer would you use?
Any kind of water-soluble fertilizer. So Miracle Grow is the most popular, but there are several brands out in the market that you can use. And normally you would use 1 tablespoonful per gallon of water, but if you're going to feed them every time you water, then maybe cut that by 1/4 or 1/8, so there's always a little bit of food in the water.
Okay, well that sounds good. So I look forward to big, beautiful plants now.
Excellent.
If you have a question for a pro, email it to growinggreenaskapro@gmail.com. If your question is selected, you'll receive a Plant Something t-shirt from NJNLA.
Last month, you saw them assemble planting kits as part of Horticultural Therapy Week. Today, they are planting what they've designed, and we'll get to hear from some of the students about this project and what it means to them to be able to do this.
Watch for growing green!
Hi, I'm Holly Nelson. I'm a landscape architect and I'm the undergraduate program director at the Rutgers Landscape Architecture program. And today, planting design class, they've already sat at their desks and designed a garden, and they've selected plants and drawn little circles on a drawing, but today they're turning that drawing into a garden. And this is really important for them so that they understand what the planting plan is about, and also how to communicate with people who are doing installations, because it's not always the landscape architect who actually does the plantings. But today they are doing the plantings, and I've heard how happy they are to be outside. They're finding this really relaxing, even though it's tiring. And they feel meditative, and they've been talking about the properties that plants have that relax a generation that's, deeply anxious, and for obvious reasons, since we've just been through a pandemic and a lot of unrest. So this is a healthful outdoor activity, and we're having a great time.
Hey, my name's Mason and I'm part of the Landscape Architecture program here at Rutgers University. And today what we're doing is we're just planting around Bush Suites, Donaldson to be specific. And this is part of our final project. We actually planned, a bunch of programming around the site and just had overall plans of what we wanted to see, new programming and just different changes here. But today we're actually getting, in the dirt and, in the grass, and we're planting. And that's a really beautiful thing, because landscape architecture does come from the planning part and making the plans, the sections, all the things that you have to do, but there's also the part of actually getting involved. There's two parts to it. So it's really beautiful to really get in both sides of it, go through the planning phase and then also actually plant to see what it's all about. It's just a really good experience to do this as our final project.
Hi, I'm Cherise.
I'm Selena.
And we are out here on the Davidson courtyard planting plants that our friend Will actually designed. So it's his planting plan, and we're really excited to be here because we didn't think that we'd be able to come out here and actually do the planting since we were online for the first few weeks of the semester. We started at the end of at the beginning of January. So it's a lot of fun to actually get out here and do this.
Yeah, so we started planting today. We're going to be out here again Friday doing some plantings, and we're excited to see what it's going to look like.
Hey everyone, my name is Will Hendershot, and today we're here at the Bush Suites doing an install for planting design at Rutgers University. So what we have here is a fairly simple design. We have some switchgrasses, some Russian sage, some nepeta, and then a little bit of verbena, just to add another pop of color. Landscape architecture is a really cool program. It's a fairly small one. There's right now about 20 of us. But if you're looking to get into the program, it's great. You get your hands dirty, you get to work with designing and do some installations. It's nice to see that process from the start to the end.
So today we are planting one of our designs from one of our classes in landscape architecture. We are just learning how to make planting designs, and this is one of them. So many of our students, my fellow classmates, haven't done things like this before, so we're just learning.
So in terms of experience, I feel like this class has taught us a lot of experiences, especially how to deal with like different soils and different plant types. We've learned a lot, and throughout the entire course of the semester, I feel like our appreciation for the environment and for the plants have been a lot more prominent and like dominant when we think about designs that we choose to do. And I feel like with time, like knowledge only grows. So hopefully, like this will be something that's more futuristic, yeah, in life, yeah. And that's it.
Yeah, so we're out here at Davidson Courtyard, and it's going really great. We're learning how to plant stuff, and it's definitely really interesting because as a planner, you look at everything really top down. So now being in it, we really get to like experience what it's like and experience the hardship and the work that goes into maintaining a beautiful landscape. And we helped, design this, so it's really fun, and yeah, it's a really great time.
Okay. My love for plants really increased after taking this plant design class. I really didn't care about plants as much, but getting introduced to like native plants and actually working physically is like this is very therapeutic for me, and I learned about how plants can help people in general dealing with depression, anxiety, and other stuff like that. So I think it's really cool, you know, working with plants and learning more about plants.
Hi guys, again. So I'm here with a couple of my fellow classmates, and we just kind of wanted to talk about some of the prior experiences we had before the program. I'll ask a couple questions. So the first question is, yeah, you guys both obviously have prior experience. Like, what did you apply from stuff that you've learned before coming here today to the project that we're currently doing right now?
So, having some prior experience and being in the landscape architecture field at Rutgers, you don't get a lot of hands-on work. So having that knowledge beforehand is really helpful and beneficial to when we come to install. I'm with Hendershot Construction. We've been around since 1900. And Sean also has a company, if you want to talk a little more about that.
Yeah, I do a lot of lawn maintenance and different installs for small residential stuff, and really enjoy coming out here today and getting my hands dirty and doing stuff for class.
Yeah, it's really great. I saw that Will actually made a planting plan, and Sean has very good experience with digging holes and planting plants. So I had questions, and I was able to pick up really quick just by their prior experience. And just one more question, from the stuff that you've learned, Sean, I guess, what have you applied today, planting, from what you've picked up over the years of your prior experience?
Yeah, of course. So it's definitely important when we're planting to make sure we're getting good spacing, making sure the taller plants going in the back, and just putting stuff where they appropriately should be with shade tolerance and where in the sun. So,
yeah. One other thing, being that we're at a college campus, we're here in the winter, the fall, and that's the two seasons that we really want to focus a lot of the plants on. So we have a lot of fall color, a lot of spring color, and we're drawing back a little on the summer and the winter, just so we can prioritize when people are going to be here.
Yeah, and that experience, just brings us all together and makes this project a lot more fun.
Hi, my name is James Ardadu, Assistant Director of the Rutgers University Grounds Department. Part of our mission as university facilities is to support the mission of the school, academia. And as you see behind me, one of the biggest projects that we try to accomplish is providing support for students and their projects that they try to accomplish. And several times a year, we'll have students from the Landscape Architecture Department do designs for us in different areas of the campus. And part of the design, we try to install on a part of the work that they designed. And really, that's really one of the biggest goals we have, is to support that mission of the university by providing support and collaborating on projects like this.